Welcome to the OMA Podcast. I'm Razor. I'm here with Trauma and Quicks. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
What's cracking? I'm Trauma. I'm better than you at Call of Duty.
Okay.
Hey, what's good? It's Quicks here, and I will literally ruin your day in S&D. Come on.
Take a bite. Let's get it.
So we're starting up a podcast, kind of just going over stuff around the Call of Duty Pro League, and just kind of shooting the shit, really. This first episode is going to be tailored towards Rostermania, and our predictions about who is going to get cut, because obviously the league's going down 4v4. So, gentlemen, if you guys are ready to go, I think I'm good to go here.
Wherever you want to start, bud.
All right. You good, Quicks?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm ready.
All right. So, I guess we should start with the Dallas Empire. We already know Clayster is getting cut. He's already announced on Twitter that he's gone. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I thought it was going to be Illy at first, but, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, they're not going to drop their young guns, and Hook's not getting dropped from Envy ever, so he was really the odd man out. Yeah. They're not dropping Krim. He just won MVP, so I feel like it was the best available. Like, he was the only one that could get dropped, I should say.
So you're saying you're not surprised, then?
No, not at all.
Gotcha. See, on the other hand, I was on the opposite of that. I was more so, I know Shots, he was MVP and all, but in a Treyarch game, this is his first year of COD. He had never played on a Treyarch game before. I mean, now there's Illy on a pro level, but Illy was also in the S&D scene heavily in BO4, so I was definitely shocked to see Clay go, especially after how well he performed at Champs.
Yeah, I just saw an interview Clayster was doing actually right before we started recording this podcast with Crim6. He was talking with ESPN, their esports division, and he was saying that the decision came down because the investors, and he didn't mention Hastro, but he said that he really didn't have a part of it, but they wanted to, it was either between keeping the people who were decorated or keeping the young guns and the future of the team, and they chose to go with the future, so it was either him or Clayster getting cut. And like you were saying, Trauma, about, Crim6 just won MVP for their champs performance, so, I mean, honestly, it makes sense. It makes sense to see him go.
It's like, if you're in like the NBA and like you're a GM of a team and you're rebuilding a team, you're not going to go for the oldest person in the league who is Clayster. You're going to go for the youngest player available because obviously they have the most potential to grow. I mean, Clayster's peak is already behind him, like, let's be real. And that's not to like discredit him because obviously he did play, fantastic COD at Champs, but when you're thinking about Illy, Shotzzy, and Hook, like, he just doesn't really compare skill-wise. So he's just the only one to go. Like, you can't consider dropping anybody else.
Right. I think moving on there, we could go to Atlanta FaZe. And this one, to me, is kind of interesting because I kind of have a point down the road here I want to bring up about maybe, like, different roster moves instead of just cutting one person. I can see maybe some lineups getting shooken up, but who do you guys have for getting cut on Atlanta FaZe?
Now, see, for me, this is one that I've been actually thinking about ever since Champs ended, and as soon as they made that 4v4 announcement, which I'm going to say this now, they made the 4v4 announcement kind of at the wrong time and also at an early time, and literally a day after Champs. But FaZe is kind of in a tough situation because they have two players, really three, because Priest can play an AR as well. They have Selim and Major Maniac, who are both on ARs, and the thing is now that people really still don't know with this new game coming out is what the roles are going to be. Is it going to be a 2-flex game, a 2-sub game, or what? So it could be Major Maniac staying, it could be Selim staying, but if I had to guess, it's probably going to be Major Maniac that's going to go because Abizi, Selim, and Priest have been pretty high up on the performance list.
Yeah, I also had Major Maniac going too. That was my pick. Trauma?
I see the FaZe one's kind of interesting for me because I could see two people getting dropped from this team. I think Major Maniac's already out the door. Like you guys said, I don't think he has a chance of staying on this team when it comes to 4v4. And I could definitely see Priest getting dropped. And what I think happens, and this may be a long shot, I feel like Clayster goes to Atlanta FaZe next season. I don't know why. I just feel like he's going to reunite with Abizi.
Think so?
And that team is just going to be nasty. Like if that team does form, I feel like any young gun behind Clayster is going to succeed. So I feel like Atlanta FaZe is the perfect environment for him because he has those those young assets in a BZ and Simp, who he's teamed with both of them before and won champs with. So it would just be a perfect fit. But like Quick said, Major Maniac's basically a statue AR player. He's not going to survive in 4v4 if there's two ARs in the same team. That team's just not going to do well. And I definitely see him getting dropped if he's not dropped already.
Because that was actually going to be one of my questions going in after we had made our picks here. I was going to ask where Clay was going to go. And I was actually thinking about Atlanta FaZe as well because he's going to reunite with that duo, his E United duo. But we can talk about that a little bit more later here. So Chicago Huntsman, next up. This is the one where I kind of felt like some major moves could be made here because my pick is Prasini to go. And I think if Prasini goes, I feel like RC is going to follow. What do you think?
I'll let you go, Trauma. Go ahead.
I feel like the only correct answer is Pristini. I don't think there's anyone else in this roster who is droppable. After Modern Warfare, I think RCDs and Envoy have kind of cemented themselves as undroppable. And, they're not dropping T2P, so I see Pristini leaving, but I don't see RCDs following. In the past, RCDs and Pristini have already said that, they can play a part and it's no problem, but it's kind of weird because when it came to MW, RCD said that he never felt comfortable on the map without his brother Pristini, and it's just kind of odd that that's what happened because obviously they had Gunless, who was one of the best flexes in Call of Duty history, like undoubtedly, and he still couldn't really get the same performance out of himself without his brother on the battlefield with him. So I feel like Pristini's going to go somewhere. I feel like maybe the Surge have a good chance at picking him up just because that team is so bad. Or maybe Paris, because that team is going to be dog shit in 4v4.
Do you think Paris picks up an American player?
I mean, they already have Kismet in their team.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So I could see it, but yeah, like Quicks and like yourself said, I think Pristini's the one to go. I don't think there's really any other player on that team who can get dropped, so I think it's the only option.
Quicks?
Yeah, for me, it's one of those things. I know ever since the events have been going on, especially the past two, me and Trauma have both been watching the streams together, like within the Discord when we're playing games and stuff together. And Rastini's really been underperforming, and he was brought in to help rise this team to the occasion. And I know the first event that he was on the Huntsman, they did win. And yes, but then after that, their performances were very lackluster. I mean, I know they didn't place very bad, but they obviously didn't get the place that they were shooting for, being first place. I'm definitely on board with Pristini going. I'm also thinking that if two spots open up on a team, like a place like Seattle is a big thing for me because there's two reasons for this. I think there's going to be two players that are going to be getting dropped off, possibly even three off of Seattle. And I know at the beginning of MW, Arcides was going to team with Octane before Huntsman gave him an offer. And so I think Pristini and Alec could go there. If Pristini gets dropped and Alec doesn't want to go, doesn't want his brother to go elsewhere. So it's definitely a possibility.
All right, interesting. Now, do you think if RC's and Pristini goes, do you think Gunless comes back on the roster, or do you think that bridge has already been burnt and we're gonna see?
No,
I don't. I think Gunless is already found on another team.
And who do you think he'd go to?
I'm gonna say he's probably gonna make his way to Optic. I'm gonna say he's gonna go back with Slasher, like how it was in World War II, and I think it's probably gonna be Dashy, TJ, Slasher, and Gunless. Slasher is the main AR, and Gunless could either be a sub with TJ or he could be a flex, and then they would have to work that out between Dashy and Gunless really if they form that four.
That's the one problem with that that Optic roster you're lining out is the fact that there is, 2 or 3 flex players in that team?
There's 2 flex players. Yeah, that's a
And,
problem.
Dashy got benched on an MW for not wanting to run a sub. Like, he kind of refused to use it. And then Gunless, he never felt comfortable with a sub. So, I mean, that dynamic of the team may just destroy them because, like Huntsman were at the beginning of the year, a lot of role clashes. After every event, they were switching roles, and they could never find that consistency. They could never find, like, the right fit. And it took dropping Gunless for Pristini, a player who's very selfless and, he'll bait himself to see success. So, honestly, for me, I don't see Gunless coming back to the Huntsman, but I feel like him and Pristini will go somewhere as a duo. That's my take. I think maybe he'll go to Surge. Like I said, if Pristini does go to Surge, I think Gunless may follow suit. Or Optic pick up Gunless. That's also a good option, but I don't see there being more than 2 flexes on that Optic roster. I don't think they stick with Dashy if that's the case. If they pick up Gunless, I think Dashy's gone.
So basically, from what I'm understanding from both of you, is you think the Seattle Surge is going to make some big moves here in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 players in that team who probably don't deserve to be on that team. Like, I watched the podcast with Nameless and Krim last night, and Nameless or Krim was basically saying, like, there's certain players in the league who just don't know what they're doing, and they don't play the game properly. And I feel like Surge is definitely one of those rosters, as well as, like, the Minnesota Rocker. Like, I feel like that Rocker team is going to get completely shaken up the same way that Surge is going to get shaken up. I feel like there's only going to be, like, Silly and maybe Assault left in that roster, whereas with Surge, I think only Slack's going to be left.
Now, do you think they play wrong because of the way Modern Warfare played out? Or you think
I just think I think the biggest problem with that Surge team is the fact that they could never find the roster they wanted. I mean, going into the year, they knew they were going to get smoked. They got Enable on the bench for, like, the entire season, and, like, that just never made any sense to me. I mean, throughout his years in COD, Enable's always kind of been an inconsistent player stats-wise, but he's always been an impactful player when it comes down to whether or not you want to win. Like, he's going to make the right play, and they lack that. They lack that all year. The only player on that Surge roster who was even good at the game was Octane. And I feel like Octane was just literally just waiting for somebody to help him on the map. So I think that Surge roster gets completely flipped. If Octane stays on Surge, I think it's going to be him and Slack looking for 2, and then I think that's where Pristini and Gunless come in. But if Octane just says, fuck this, I'm out, I'm going to a different team, I feel like that team is going to get completely shaken up, and Slack's going to be the only one to rebuild. So I think that's what happens with that team. And I think they definitely need a good opening event to, like, show some promise, because these Seattle fans have been waiting for an entire year for them to win a series, and they can't.
Yeah.
Now, see, on that topic, though, on Seattle, I was going to save this until later, but since we're already on topic of them making changes, I'll just go ahead and talk about it. Okay. There is a big question of John returning to the league. Now, John, we all know John has been one of those guys that shows up and always performs when he's given the task to do so. Guy who won in Black Ops 3, won Champs, was the MVP at Champs. And he's also teamed with Slacked on most of all the teams that he's been part of. So, with that being said, if they make a change, I could definitely see it being Slack, John, and Octane looking for one, being that obviously it would have to be a sub player or a flex player, because at that point you have Slack and John on the front lines, Octane as your main AR.
And Pristini fits right into that roster too, like, perfectly.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
But I could see that happening, but my only concern is when players come out of the league, they very rarely ever get back in. Like, this John hasn't played COD for an entire year. He didn't even touch MW. So while I think there's a good chance he can come back and get a league spot, I'm wondering if, like, the higher ups, like ownerships, are just like, nah, like, this guy doesn't even play. Like, we're not going to invest this money into a player who hasn't even attempted to play the game that we started franchising with. So I think that's where that might come in. I feel like there's certain restrictions that might stop him from entering the league, but I feel like there's a good chance he does team with Slack for sure.
Yeah, for sure. The next team up here is the London Royal Ravens. Here came in fourth champs. What do you guys think's gonna happen?
Well, I mean, Luskin's already got dropped, right? I think that's already been confirmed.
On
That was
Twitter,
going to be something I was going to talk about.
I believe people assume that,
think
and then his
I think he
brother,
said it.
yeah, his
I
brother
have it.
responded to that though.
I can talk about it if you guys want me to.
Yeah, go
I have
for
it
it.
written
Go for
down.
it.
Okay, so basically, what happened with the Royal Ravens is after September 13th, which is the day before RosterMania officially starts within the CDL, Wuskin and Scraps' both of their contracts are both up after the 13th under London. So at that point in time, they are free agents to go to whatever team they want, but they can also re-sign with London if given the proper team. Wuskin said he will re-sign if there's a better team, and Jerd's already been removed from that team, so he's not even in the picture anymore. So
And Jared was benched for zero, right?
I would believe Jerd was on the bench, correct?
Okay, so
Yeah, he was.
Drum, what do you think? Who do you think gets benched out of those five?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say because if we're going off raw skill, I think Scraps, Dylan, and Weskins should be on that roster. But if there's already rumors circling about Weskins getting dropped, I think that maybe there's some type of problem with the dynamic between those twin brothers because they just never seem to win. So I think maybe Weskins goes Zero. I never want to count out Zero because when it comes time for champs, he's always a good player. Like, he's always consistent. He's always making the right plays, and it showed at champs this year. He got on London, and he took his opportunity, and he ran with it, and he had a fucking amazing champs event. Like, it was kind of insane to see somebody bounce back the way he did after getting dropped from New York and just continuing to, like, persevere through all of his struggles and keep going. So I think London, they have a big decision to make whether or not they want to drop Zero or Weskins. But after the last 2 years, I think it'd be a mistake to drop Weskins. He's too good. Like, he was the best AR statistically for like the first 6 events this year. So I think it'd be dumb to drop him.
Yeah, I mean that's another team that has a twin dynamic there, and it opens up the door. I don't think they would split up they would split like I feel like they would not split up. Um, I feel like if Wiskins kind of goes, I feel like he's not getting the spot anywhere else. I don't know. I feel like with the way the league's going and just the way it's all kind of seems set up, he's not even getting benched. He's just gonna go right to the amateur challengers spot there and just kind of either play amateur COD or I don't know.
I think the only places he can go are like the bottom 4 teams in the league.
You think
Because I
maybe
feel
Paris
like
picks him up?
yeah, Paris maybe just because like to kind of go back to that twin dynamic. Scraps has played without Weskins before in World War II, and
I was gonna say that.
he had his best placements. Like, he placed second like how many times? I don't even know. It was like 3 or 4 times he placed second without his brother. So I think that dynamic can definitely go. I don't think either one of them would be against it because it's obviously what's best for their careers. But at the same time, I feel like they work very well together, and I feel like they have that level of trust and that communication that you can't really just kind of find in anyone. So if Weskins does go anywhere, or Zero, or anyone, whoever gets dropped from this team, I don't see them going to a top team. I don't see them going to a good team at all. I think if they go anywhere, it's going to be one of those bottom 4 teams who just really need the help, like LA, Gorillas, Paris, teams like that who just could never find their footing in the league. I feel like that's where players like this will wind up because you're not getting the best players in the game, but you're getting a very solid player. And from where those teams are at now, that's an upgrade over anyone on their rosters.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Next up, I guess we can do OGLA, up to gaming. I know Cody kind of talked about this.
Yeah,
Quick,
I have a there's one of 2 ways that I think that this organization can go. I've been hearing rumors speculating that there's a possible return of Nade Shot investing, um, investing in a team, um, if he has a chance to, and if he has a chance to, obviously he's going to rebrand it somewhere along the lines of 100 Thieves, obviously. And I've heard that there's been talks of Kenny and Octane teaming back up if such a thing were to happen, and that would lead me to the point to where it would be, uh, once again, it'd be Slasher, Octane, Kenny, and then at that point you would have to pick a third player out of those two, um, to play together. But then that also leaves TJ Halley in the mix, and I mean he wasn't underperforming in the year, but he also wasn't on top of his game like he was in Black Ops 4. So that roster is kind of confusing, but then again, like I said earlier, they could also make moves based around gunless and stuff and make a team of 4 with the other 4 players that I spoke about earlier.
So are you saying, like, assuming that there's going to be more teams
I
next
mean,
season?
I think that there could be. People have said that there's going to be no expansion, but you never know with what everything is going on right
There
now. I
were
mean,
there were rumors of expansion,
right,
but there's no like evidence of it actually
right.
happening yet.
But I mean, the thing is, you also got to think like the way I thought of it is like they said that there's no expansion, but they literally popped off the scene literally a day after Empire won champs and literally broke the news that it's going back to 4v4. You're literally cutting 12 people off from a job pretty much and an income for the whole entire year going on to 4v4. So I don't know. It's a possibility, but if not, it is what it is.
Yeah, because I thought the thing that I read, it wasn't. I guess the league didn't confirm it, but I thought the commissioner herself issued a statement to. I also want to say it was ESPN's esport division there about how they want to see more land performance before they allow people to invest into the league. Which, I mean, if people are ready to invest, I don't see why you wouldn't, whether it be an online league or not. Um, but I mean, again, as long as the league doesn't tweet it out or come out with an official announcement, I guess anything's possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm almost 95% sure that next year is also going to be online for the league. I don't think there's going to be any lands. Nameless and Crim kind of hinted at the fact that look at the world today, and that's basically your answer. Like everything's kind of still closed, due to this pandemic. There's not much you can still do outside. You can't really go to the movies like you used to. You can't do this. You can't do that. So the likelihood of there being lands next year are very unlikely, which really does suck for COD because, again, it's another year where there's an asterisk next to every tournament, and it really sucks for the community because we all want to see lands. We all want to be able to go to a LAN and have that kind of feeling again. Like, us three went to Fort Worth, and it was a very good experience. It was fun. It was a different way to experience the game that we've never experienced before, and without that feeling, it just kind of, I don't know, the league's not going to feel the same. So to kind of like touch on the whole like land thing, I just don't see it happening. So I don't see that correlating to like expansion teams. I feel like if there's going to be any expansions, I think they're going to do it, especially since it's all online. Like you don't even need to be in the same country. Like you can be across the fucking world and still, be in the league.
Yeah. You guys don't think Champs is gonna be on LAN?
Nah, see,
No.
this is what I was gonna talk about since I had that written down for the end, but since we're on it now, I'll talk about this as well. Another thing that was in question was since everything has the possibility of being online again all next year, what is the chances that organizations go after online players who have uh, well known to be onliners, as the kids in the COD community call them, as to where they're a very strong player online, but they're known not to perform that well on land just based off the sole fact that you're playing for millions of dollars on online competition in Call of Duty.
Yeah, I mean, with all this crap going on and everything being closed, yes, we really don't know until the outside world kind of cleans itself up and we kind of get back to normal here. But I personally would love to see at least maybe Champs kind of end the
Right.
season on LAN, and then we enter the 2022 season as a offline tournament like how it always used to be. But I guess time will tell with that.
My question, and I don't even know like who can answer this. Obviously, we don't have the answers for this, but I don't understand why Call of Duty has yet to implement a bubble system like the NBA or like the NHL. Like,
Yeah, I have an answer for this.
because if you think about it, they're all gamers. They're not leaving their fucking rooms anyway. Like, they're not going outside. So what is the problem with doing a bubble system? Like, we could have done it like how it was in Columbus back in the day. Like, they would all go to Columbus for 2 weeks at a time. They'd live in these apartments that were rented out by the CWL at the time for the players. They lived there for 2 weeks. They'd go back home, and they'd come back like 2 weeks later. I feel like that system should be either implemented or maybe for the season, like 7-8 months, just live there. Like, yeah, maybe some of these players have homes and some of them have wives and kids, which is kind of like a little bit of a, it's a double-edged sword because obviously they probably wouldn't do it. But I feel like that's the only way that COD kind of gets past this whole dynamic of it being, oh, it's online, none of this counts. Like, I feel like the bubble is the only way for that to work and the only way for us to have lands back, because every time there's anything public with a bunch of people right now, you get a bunch of corona cases, and it's just like there's nothing you can do to stop it. I think the only way to stop it is through a bubble and minimal interaction with people outside.
Now, see, on that task, I don't know if, I assume if you guys don't know, you obviously haven't watched it. Hex made a podcast a few weeks ago. I forgot even who it was with. Now it's been such a long period of time, but they were talking about a bubble in COD, and someone after the podcast tweeted about it. And Adam Apicella, the guy that used to run all the MLG events, responded.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
And for all the hospitality, all the housing, all the if you're feeding them like 3-course meals a day, and all the stuff like that, plus all the environment set up for like the land and stuff, he said it was averaging, I think it was like somewhere from like anywhere from like $5 to $7 million or something for a COD bubble. Which I don't know how that's such a high number, but that's off Adam Apicella. He ran the events. He knows what it takes to run it. I don't. So
at the same time, does it really matter how much it costs? This is a $25 million buy-in league. Every team has to pay $25 million to get into this league, and you mean to tell me they can't spend $5 million to support the players? That sounds like they're just trying to get their pockets a little bit deeper instead of helping out their own community.
I don't know if you know this or not. Was the $5 to $7 million, is that per team or for the whole league?
$25 million is what it costs per organization to go into the league.
Oh no! I'm saying if they were to do the bubble, the $5 to $7 million was that per team?
$7 million would be just the overall price.
I feel like, I don't know, given how much the league is.
That's not a big investment when you think about how much money this league makes, right? Like through ad revenue and sponsors. This league is literally making bank. I feel like if they can't spend $5 million to support their players, and it's not even just for their players. I feel like it's for the community in general, because I feel like any COD fan would rather watch a LAN than an online game where half the players don't even have their fucking cameras on. Like, you're looking at a still picture of Formal for the entire year. He had his camera on like maybe 5 times the whole year.
I feel like that for sure needs to be fixed and regulated. I don't know. It's Formal, and I feel like
he's definitely getting special treatment. There's no denying that.
Absolutely.
Because players have been bitching about that. I saw that on Twitter a few days ago. Like, someone was calling him out because he didn't have to fucking use his camera.
Yeah. And just to touch on this one more time, and then we can move on to the next team here. But, if they do the bubble and they do a LAN without fans, they're not getting any revenue that way either. They're not getting any ticket sales. They're not selling any merchandise. They're not, selling food, whatever, X, Y, and Z. So, I don't know how much an event makes. If you look at CS, CS
they have that Columbus studio, so it's not like they need
That's a good point.
They don't need to fill it up as long as there's just enough space for players to set up and play the game. I don't think there should be any other worries. As long as the players have the ability to play comfortably and, in a LAN environment and be safe, I think that's, the number one priority. I don't think anything else matters.
Okay. All right, cool. Next team we have the Toronto Ultra. That team has a shit ton of people. I feel like a shit ton of people are going. They're not gonna have
Yeah,
a bench like
I'll tell
that.
you right now, that 10-man roster, at least half of them are going to be unemployed in like a week.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
that for sure is getting decimated there. I had either Metals or Cammy going. I feel like Methods is like the franchise like star there. I feel like they'll keep him on. I feel like Kleenex isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that Kleenex is safe.
Right.
I don't think he's getting dropped anytime soon. He's disgusting.
So the thing that brought me to this one is this one's obviously hard. Like Razor said, it's a 10-man roster, or however many people are on that roster. I don't even know at this point. You obviously have Looney, who won 2 events in World War II on boots on the ground, and Methods, who won 1 in Modern Warfare and 2 in World War II. He won 1 under Rise or 2 under Rise or something.
Well, no, I think he won. He's only won 2 events, I think.
Oh, okay, so, but then the question is like you guys said, Kleenex, he was absolutely disgusting at BO4. Like, I don't know if you guys remember his performance.
Yeah,
at
he was
Champs
nutty at Champs.
Under Singularity or whatever. Or
Yeah, Singularity.
He was literally frying everybody until he got eliminated. So I think he's safe, but then the question is if you drop the rest of those guys, you then have Methods, Looney, Cammy, and Kleenex, and I don't know how that roster meshes.
You see, what I'm wondering is if next year works like this year, where you can just transfer all their sub players to next year, and it'll still be 4v4. Let's say they just move somebody else to the bench, so like they have a 6-man bench. I wonder if they can still do that, because if that's the case, they can just do what they did this year and just swap out players whenever they need to. But I still feel like that team isn't going to win anything. They have a lot of players on their team, but none of them are really star players. None of them are going to be really like, a standout player on that bench. I could see Looney potentially coming back into the starting lineup with it being 4v4, because he is so well experienced on it, and he's won multiple times in 4v4. But like I said earlier, I don't see any of those sub players ever seeing the light of day. I don't think any of them will spawn in under the Ultra next year. And if anything, I think they could get dropped very well and get traded. Like, that's one thing I thought about too, is they have a lot of players on their team. They could potentially make a trade for one player. Let's say they trade 3 players for 1 player, something like that.
Something interesting that Karma brought up, I think it was on the podcast, was about how the way that this league works is there's the off season after champs, obviously, and the champs is in August. So you have September, October, in November. Usually COD comes out end of October, beginning of November. We're seeing with this game is kind of almost mid-November. But the rosters kind of have to be made and locked in. I don't know if I think it's right before the game comes out or
I
shortly
think roster
after.
locks like October 30th. I'm pretty sure.
So
No, I think it's September 14th. I saw.
I thought that's when it opens up.
September 14th is when RosterMania begins. That's correct.
So obviously they're gonna the rosters have to be locked into place before the next game comes out, which Karma was saying is a problem, because what if the 2-hour game it plays differently, and the players that they now have on their roster that they kept after cutting all these people, what if they suck ass?
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing. I not to cut you off, but that now that you mention it, that's a good thought, because on that podcast I was mentioning earlier with Krim and Nameless, Krim was basically saying, next year there aren't going to be many sub players to choose from. A lot of these rosters, they're picking up as many good AR players as they can, or these flex players. So the likelihood of finding a bunch of sub players is very unlikely. Like, you're not going to be able to find a star sub after tomorrow. Like, literally, like tomorrow, you're probably not going to even be able to find a sub player to even put on your team.
Right. And I mean, I feel like that's something that needs to be maybe worked on next season, and keeping that roster lock for at least a month into the next game, because usually the competitions start till the following year, so we're not going to even see the league start until at least January, right? At least that's how Modern Warfare did it.
Like a little like mid-December, I think, was the first event.
Oh, really? So I mean, like I said, they still have like a month to play with there. So I don't know. I feel like in Ultra's case, where they have all these people they can choose from, if they were if the contract could extend a little past when the game comes out and they see everybody play and they do lots of scrims and they see what meshes well, that will allow them to make the best decision possible for that organization compared to okay playing the beta, playing or seeing what the reveal is like, and then just making a judgment off that. Definitely though, I don't know. They have the most to play with, I guess, in terms of what they have currently, and I guess what's gonna eventually be out there with people making moves.
Yeah, they have a lot to play with, but I'm not sure what their like how good it's looking for them.
Right, for sure.
Now, see, there's another thing here that I completely forgot who that person, even a player, I completely forgot about. You have Brack on the bench on Toronto. I forgot all about him.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because I think Brack's really good,
Right.
but after seeing Ultra's performance this entire season without him, I don't think they need him. They have Kleenex as one of their main sub player. I don't think they really need Brack. I mean, Brack was good at BO4 because he was a flex player, and he ran the Maddox, and the Maddox was basically a do-it-all gun. And in Modern Warfare, there was no do-it-all gun. It was really just kind of you're a sub or you're an AR. And I think that the roster they had did what they did very well. I think if that Toronto roster was there the whole year, I think they potentially would have won more than one championship just because that team had a very high ceiling and a high potential.
Yeah. Next team we're gonna talk about here came in 7th, 8th in this champs was the Florida Mutineers. Who wants to start that one off?
I'll go on this one. So, in that Nameless podcast last night, with Krim, they were talking about this, and Krim said that he thinks the 2 players or 3 players that, well, I guess it'd be 2 that are gonna go is gonna be Havoc and who else am I thinking? I'm drawing a blank of who the other person is. He said Pharaoh and Awakening are going to have 2 starting spots, and Skies is going to. Frosty. He said that Frosty and Havoc are going to be the 2 to go. He thinks if they were to make a move.
And my pick was also Havoc. To be honest with you.
Yeah, Havoc's the only man you can choose really. I think Havoc's always been a good player, like a semi-good player in the past, but he's come into a new form the past 2 years. But for some reason with Havoc, when it comes to champs time, he never shows up. And he had an abysmal champs performance this year. It's like he didn't even fucking show up to the event, and it was in his bedroom. So I don't even know how you take away from that. I think Havoc's the only player you can drop from that team. But I don't see them dropping Frosty at all.
Interesting point.
Frosty's too fucking good. He's a multi FPS world champ, bro. Or not world champ, but multi FPS champion.
Something that I forgot to bring up, I guess, while we're going through this roster stuff is, if you're the team owner, the team leader here, and you're trying to figure out what's the best for your team, what's the roster looking like, do you take into account that this upcoming year is online? I mean, like we were saying, it's going to be online, if not for the whole season. Do you try to, out of your choices here, pick who's better online compared to on LAN? I mean, obviously, like with the Minnesota Rocker, I mean, you saw, like, God or actually, just going right to shit once they get online,
I don't think so, and I'll say why, because if I'm an org owner or if I'm a GM or whatever the case may be, if I'm in the position of signing players and forming a team, I'm looking for the best people on LAN, and I'm figuring out where they live or where they're from, and if I can move them to, let's say, Texas, because Texas has the best connection to COD servers, and there's only 3 servers that CDL uses. One's Chicago, one's LA, and then one's Texas. So if somebody lives in Cali and they're playing online Call of Duty, they're getting fucking bopped off host. So I'm looking for players who are either able to move, willing to move, or players who already live in areas that aren't going to be affected by the server distances. And I'm just forming my rosters around that. So, like, let's say Frosty lived in Chicago. Chicago has a fairly decent connection to Texas, I would say. It's not the best, but it's fairly okay compared to Cali, to Chicago. So, I mean, from that instance, I'd say I just look for the best available player and just try to get them to move if they need to.
Do you think they add servers?
Fuck no, I don't. And I'll tell you why, because the pros have literally been begging for it all year, and they didn't do anything.
Okay. Cody?
Yeah, I don't know. There's the base servers that have already been put in, and like Trauma just pros have literally been like I know the main person that's been complaining about server issues is Slasher, obviously. And a bunch of other pros have also been putting their word forth, and nothing's being changed. But who knows? It's something could change eventually.
Can I just throw this out here, and maybe we can discuss this? Do you think the league didn't want to add servers because it could be argued that it kind of jeopardizes the league integrity? Because, for example, before champs, I forgot what the previous event before champs was, but what if they added servers that kind of made it an even playing field? So you go to the event prior where people were kind of not having the best connection. It kind of like is counterintuitive, I guess, for those past results, because if they would have had the servers back then, they would have performed better. But since they only had what they had at the time, it's like you just kind of have to adjust to that now. And then maybe in the off season they add, I don't know, 5 more, I don't know. And then there's more to pick from, more to work with, and it starts at the beginning of the season. Or do you think that they just refuse to do it?
I think they're gonna refuse because I feel like if they were gonna do it, they would have done it by now.
So you don't think it jeopardizes the league integrity to do it during the season?
I think it jeopardizes the integrity if they don't do it because you're not even giving some of these players a fair shot to win the event.
Okay.
Also, not to interrupt the convos, but CDL Intel just tweeted that the minimum roster size for next season is 5 players, and last season for MW it was 7. So we're going to see a different size rosters this year, which is kind of interesting.
Size?
No, minimum. Like you need 5 players on your roster.
Okay.
So you need 4 and then 1 sub rather than 2 subs.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I definitely feel like there's gonna be a lot of players who are gonna be hurting. Moving off of the mutineers, we have the subliners, and I feel like is it kind of easy? I feel like it's kind of Mac, right? I mean, I know he did pretty well this season. I mean, being a rookie, but yeah, four vets in that team.
I mean, honestly, I don't want to say that Temp should go, but I think throughout the year Mac was better than him.
Okay, now
but I'm not sure how much teams are going to take MW like stats into account for a new game, because Mac could very well be the one that goes, but just from an overall performance perspective, Mac was the best player on that team since he joined.
Now, okay, let me throw this out here. Do you think Mac goes on the bench? They don't cut Mac off the team. He just is their bench player. So that way,
absolutely not.
You don't think so?
No.
Yeah, I think if he was to get dropped, I think he'd be a sub. Yeah.
So you're saying he's a sub, and you're saying he's.
It's like he has no say in where he goes. If they want him to be a sub, he'll be a sub. But if they're a cool organization, and they want him to prosper and they want him to have a league spot, there might be a team out there. Like who knows? Like let's say a Paris or a Surge. Let's say they saw something in Mac that, they really want him. Like they're gonna do whatever it takes to get Mac. Like they're gonna throw a bag at him. Like, I don't see New York saying no for a trade for that. But if they want to keep Mac on the roster, let's say when the game drops, the New York subliners suck, and they want Mac to go in, I think that's their best bet. I don't see anyone completely dropping somebody like that, with his caliber of skill.
Now, why do you say no?
The way that I look at it, it's like I go back for going into this transition. I'm gonna go back to like the BO4 type thing because I feel like they're gonna go because it's already been confirmed. The game is pretty much gonna be like BO4 with the movement and stuff. Temp was a lot better at BO4. Temp should have realistically had at least 1, maybe even 2 championships on Black Ops 4. So if there's anyone to go off New York, in my opinion, I think it's going to be Attach that's going to go because Attach did not perform that well in Black Ops 4.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think it really matters too much. Black Ops 4 to this and to the new game is not going to matter because for one, it's 4v4, not 5v5, and BO4 was just a fucking terrible game. It's 4 Maddoxes or 3 or 4 Maddoxes and an ICR and a SOG, so it's very different from any COD we've played. Like there's been no meta similar to that, so it's kind of hard to say, but I don't see them dropping Mac.
I mean, plus it's a Treyarch game. I mean, I don't know what Mac's experience is with Treyarch. Like, I don't know his track record there, but I just think unless there's a good offer from somebody to buy him out, I feel like the Subliner should just keep Mac because I feel like this roster was pretty good. I mean, it was good. It wasn't the best. Definitely, they didn't suck.
They were really good for just a short period of time. I think Temp tweeted this after they got eliminated from Champs that his team peaked too soon. So I think if this roster was formed maybe a month or two later, they would have really contended for a title of Champs, but it was just a little bit, too little too late.
Yeah. Anything to add, Quicks, or should we move on to the next team? Move on?
Oh, you're good.
All right, Minnesota Rocker.
I touched on it. I touched on it a little bit, but this team's getting fucking bulldozed.
Yep.
Yeah.
This team is. There's not much on this team to root for. To reference the podcast one more time, just because it's very relevant. Krim basically said that there's only 2 players on this team who know what the fuck they're doing, and it's Asum and Silly. And he basically he went into a group chat and texted Asum and Silly and said, like, I feel so bad for you guys because GodRx and Assault have no idea what the fuck they're doing on the map. So I see Assault and GodRx getting dropped instantly. Assault, here the tricky part with him is he's got very close ties with people in the COD scene. So like him and Aches are really close friends, and him and Silly are best friends in real life. So I feel like at the same time, while Assault deserves to go, I don't think he will, just because I feel like they're gonna take those personal connections over the skill, and ultimately I feel like it's gonna punish the team, and I feel like it's just gonna not work out for them.
Yeah.
See, for me, I think that they not rebrand, but they basically drop everyone else off that roster, and I think that they go looking for 2 with Silly and Assault, and everybody else goes, or one person goes to the bench and they drop the other 3.
I think especially with this being online, I feel like GodRx is he's done. You just if this was gonna be a LAN next year, I'd say they keep on. I'd like keep him, not necessarily start him, but have him to on the bench.
I would have him ride the bench.
Yeah.
Right.
But with it being online, man, I don't know. I think he's done. I feel like
Just the problem is there's just so many players in the league who are better than him, and like, he was a pretty good player. Like before the whole pandemic thing happened, and when we were still playing COD on LAN, when they picked up GodRx, he was actually playing the game very well. And as soon as it switched to online, it was like a light switch where he was just terrible. Like the guy couldn't fucking shoot straight, or he couldn't go positive to save his life. So I definitely see him leaving, or not him leaving, but him getting dropped, or at least put on the bench. And I feel like just about anyone in the league could fill his shoes.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely pros who I feel like are going to be cut here that don't deserve to be cut, like you gave it like the Clacers and stuff. But yeah, GodRx, I feel like it's just
it's kind of a given.
Yeah.
But one more thing to touch on the Rock, right? I definitely see. I think Asum stays around. I think they keep Asum because regardless of what his stats look like, and his stats are complete dog shit, he plays the game very well. Like he knows when to make the right plays. He knows, he knows what he's doing, and he plays his role good. So I feel like he's definitely a good building block. If he can just improve on his kills and his KD, just a little bit. He doesn't even need to go off. You just have a little bit of a better KD and just play the games the same way he's playing them. He's going to do a very good job in the league, and he'll probably prosper in the league. But until that point, I think he's always going to be looked at as this guy who's just a bait first sub who doesn't really have a gunny like the rest of these guys.
Finishing up the 9th, 10th placing here at Champs, we have the Paris Legion, a team that I didn't expect much going into this season. Did you guys?
No.
That roster first formed, and I literally had zero hope for that roster. That roster on paper is probably one of the worst rosters that he's formed.
I think me and Quicks talked about this before the year started, how bad that team was going to be.
Yeah.
You literally write those 5 names down on paper, and you're literally like, "Wow, I've actually never seen a worse."
I'm curious to see actually, like, if you look at all those players, like what their best placing is, because I guarantee you it's not above top 4.
Right.
And I think they place top 4 as a team, so like their best placings individually are as a team. So I don't think any of those players are really, cut from the same cloth as like a Formal or a Scump or a Clayster. These guys who are used to winning and used to playing well. You look at Clayster, his average placing is like 4th throughout his whole career, and you look at Kismet, and his is probably like 12th. So, they definitely built their roster out of the scraps, and to be fair, and to give them the props they deserve, no one expected that Paris team to ever place top 4 and almost contend for a title. So they definitely overachieved a little bit. I could see that team staying together, like partially, like a few of the players, and I feel like they look for one big like splash of a trade or one big pickup, because I feel like they're one superstar player away from like contending. And it's weird to say that because you look at these names and you don't think they're contending for a championship, but like when they get into the game, they're playing the game differently than everyone. And when you look at when they played FaZe, I don't remember what event it was. I think it was like 2 or 3 events ago. They played FaZe on Petro Dom and smoked them. Like they completely outplayed them. FaZe didn't expect it. And it was just a glimpse of what that roster could have been. And I feel like with one more good player, that team's actually like on the rise. So I'm looking forward to what they do, especially given all these potential roster changes and all these players getting dropped. Like, these bottom 4 teams, like I said earlier, they're going to be, in the market for a new player because, these players are getting dropped from the top teams. So they definitely have a good chance to rebuild and make something, but it's really all going to come down to the online thing and how well they mesh together with the new game.
Yeah, what do you think, Quicks?
Yeah, I don't know. It could be one of those things where that team, that organization could be the one org that ends up literally just forming a roster out of like scrap players who have just been absolutely dropped in their neck. Like it could be one of those rosters where it's like if one main hour from a team gets dropped, Paris picks them up. Now, see, I think right off the rip, I'm not pretty sure, but I'm gonna suggest that whole roster probably is gonna be dropped.
Whole roster?
Maybe Kismet stays, but those other 4 guys are probably gonna go.
You think Zed's going?
I could see Zed going to London.
The problem with this team is like, since there is no standout like superstar, any one of them can go. Like anyone can go whenever, and they can go wherever, and it wouldn't matter because they don't really have that big name. There's no big market players here, so Paris is an interesting case because no one really knows. No one knows what to expect. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up with scraps again like last year, and they're just not that good. But I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if they get that one player that makes a big difference. So it really all comes down to the offseason and how these players try to maneuver the free agency period and try to pick up new players or try to like get players to come from a different team to theirs. So I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Or for like a situation with London, how Wuskins and Scraps are both going to be free agents after the 13th. You could see if Wuskins doesn't want to re-sign, he could go to Paris and be with Zed, just like how it was on Reciprocity and BO4. So it would be Wuskin and Reciprocity looking for a team of 2 if they didn't want to keep whoever else was on the roster.
Um, Now the last two teams here, Los Angeles Guerrillas and um, and
Yikes.
Seattle Surge. There,
Let me just say now that LAG team is getting fucking bopped, man.
That LAG team is literally chalk, bro.
Yeah, that team's gonna get
There's
destroyed. The only player they're gonna keep is Blast.
There's literally no player on that team right now that could go in the Cold War and can make that team better.
I mean, I could see Blast and Saints kind of staying, but everyone else, my mic is muted. I've accidentally I've basically forgotten who their roster is because like I couldn't tell you who their AMs were that they picked up. I already forgot because they weren't good.
you want me to give you
And
5 names?
yeah, those their AM players. Who they pick up?
Okay, well, the roster for champs at least was Aqua Saints.
Was Vivid and who else?
Vivid
Decimate.
and Spart.
Okay, so yeah, Spart was fucking dog shit. So that was inevitable. I didn't think that LAG team is ever going to do anything.
Literally, the only good performance that Spart kid had was
And a search on fucking Arklov.
Yeah, Arklov peak against Hunter.
He dropped like 11 kills with a loss.
Dropped 11 kills, freaked out, and literally got shit on the next 2 matches, and literally got 3-1. And I literally haven't heard his name come up in the talk since.
But yet he's got his autograph in the fucking game. With his stupid ass little sword. But yeah, I think this LAG team is gonna get decimated. I don't think they're gonna stay together. Like I said, maybe Blast and Saints stay. I really don't see, they don't have much building blocks. Like these other teams, they have players who can like, they have some value. When you have a Spart on your team, it's just like you're not getting anywhere with that. Nobody wants Spart, so he's gonna be unemployed in a week. So
now, see, question with this is this is another one that I've also been thinking about. Say LA Guerrillas drops their whole roster or keeps one player. You could then move, if you keep Aqua on that team, you could then bring a Nagafin and Fellow from the AM scene onto the Guerrillas to team with Aqua, and
I like that.
just like the Black Ops 3 team.
I think that's what they should do. Now that you mentioned that, I really like that roster. But my only worry is Nagafin. Like every year, when Nagafin's in a league spot or he's on a team, Nagafin is never good in respawn. And if he is good in respawn, it's very inconsistent. So Nagafin really needs to be a standout, like consistent player. He needs to show his worth. And if that's the case, I think that team does really well. And a guy like Felony, who just won the Challengers Championships, I think he's got a lot of good things around him. I feel like he's a very talented player. He can definitely help a roster like the Guerrillas, who literally don't have anybody good. And I feel like you said, that where they placed 3rd at Champs. So that team has history together. They placed well together. And given we're going back to a Treyarch COD, which is one of Aqua's best games, was BO3, and I'd say he was a top 5 AR. Putting another AR in his hands, if they have a burst gun, he's gonna be amazing with it. So I see a lot of promise in that roster. But other than what Quick said, I don't even see like a good outcome for this team. Like I legit think they're gonna fucking be ass. Like I don't even know who they could go for that'd make them better, because they're just so low.
What happens with Aches? You think Aches is?
I think Aches retires. If he's smart, he retires and follows JCap.
Really? You think?
If he, I think all these older guys going into this new game, I think at this point, if they haven't already been offered or been in the talks of getting a team spot, I say it's best for them to retire and either become like an analyst or a coach for a team.
Here's what I say. Players like Tommy, players like Aches, players like JCap, even though he just retired, players who are older, OGs in the scene, I feel like it's their time. You're not going to get a starting spot, especially Aches. Like, let's be real. The dude had like a .3 at one event or some shit like that, like a .6 or something. Like, you cannot perform like that and expect to keep your job. So I feel like that whole group of guys, like that older scene, I feel like it's their time to officially hang it up. Because I feel like it's kind of unfair too for for players coming up in the scene and those sub spots are being held up by guys who are just collecting a paycheck. I feel like that's a little shitty because they will never see the light of day in game. They're never going to spawn in. They're never going to pick up the controller and play for these teams. So I feel it's only right for them to retire, but I'm not saying Tommy should retire because Tommy, I think, still could play if he wanted to, but I just don't see him ever getting any playtime anyway, so why not?
So do you think it's more so he's going to announce retirement once like all the rosters are locked and whatever, he's either doesn't get offered a starter spot or because I assume
No,
he doesn't want to ride the bench anymore. I mean, sure it's a
no.
paycheck, but
See, I think it could be something like J-Cab where you literally call it early because you know if or before dropping, you're pretty much at that point, like Trauma just said, you're at a point now to where you're one of the OGs. You have kids who are 18, 19 years old that are literally off 4 game fuels going into an event on Friday. They're literally going to be 360 world starring like someone like J Cap or Aches nowadays. Like it's night and day compared to them now.
well, I guess they would make the same mistake twice. But let's just say the league expands, right? I know Aches and Leesfield teamed, what was that, back in Black Ops 3, right? Could you see them starting on a different team, a different franchise team, or do you?
Wait, are you saying if it expands?
Yeah, if it were to expand, like I said, I
No.
don't think it's gonna expand, and
I
I
don't
don't
see
think they
Leesfield
deserve
getting
a
a
spot.
starting
To
spot.
be honest with you, okay, yeah. I was
I
just
mean,
saying,
I could see Lacefield getting a spot. Don't get me wrong, because you got to think too. How many players in the league at the bottom are better than Lacefield? I mean, we haven't seen much of him this year because he was benched after like an event, but like, Lacefield didn't look bad to me this whole year. Like when I was watching him play when he actually was on the starting spot for LAG, he didn't play that bad. So I feel like Lace has he has a chance to get on a team if they do expand, but I don't see a player like Aches getting any offers. I feel like LAG was his only option when this year started, so I don't see them giving him another option again.
all right, and then last but not least, to round off the 12 CDL franchise teams this season, you have Seattle Surge, probably one of the most disappointing teams for a lot of
The
reasons.
most for sure, the most disappointing for sure.
I know I have questions after we pick our player and we kind of talk about this roster, but we should bring up Karma retiring. Who do you guys see leaving? Or
I mean,
in this
I already touched on it earlier. I probably shouldn't have, but like I said, I think the whole team is dropped pretty much. I think, like I said, Slacked and Octane, those are the only 2 players who, in my eyes, will be safe. And even Slacked might not even be safe. But I think Octane has kind of proven to the entire world that he deserves a starting spot. So I don't think he goes anywhere. And if he does go somewhere, he's still going to get a starting spot wherever he goes. So I see that team completely rebuilding on Octane, so they're going to need to find some good subs. And this is where, like Quick said earlier, I see John coming into the picture potentially. I see Slack staying, and I see them looking for one. And like I said earlier, potentially Pristini. I feel like Pristini could work well. I feel like that team in general is very well-rounded. And I feel like it would work well, especially at Champs time. These are big-time players. Slack, John always turns up at Champs. Octane always turns up at Champs. And then there was Pristini, and Pristini didn't have himself a terrible Champs event either, I wouldn't say. But he definitely could have done a little bit better. So I could see that team going so many different routes. It's kind of hard to say because we don't have any info or any knowledge about what that team's plans are. But like I said earlier, I don't think any of like Proto. He's not going to be on the team. He won't even be a sub. There's players like that in the league. I think they're just going to disappear.
Yeah, my thing, my person, if I had to pick one, I was gonna say Proto, but
Pander, I forgot Pander's on that team. Pander's not going to have a sub spot either. He's not that good.
Quicks.
Yeah, I mean, I already talked on it earlier.
Right.
It's probably Slacked, Octane, John looking for one.
So you're saying John joins Seattle?
Yeah. If they're smart, I think either he comes in or it's Slacked and Octane, and they look for 2 and they they either aim for someone who's getting dropped off of another roster, maybe someone like Pristini, like Trauma said, if he's going to be the one to go off Chicago, or whatever the case may be. Maybe Gunless, if Gunless doesn't already have a home.
No, do we know that John even wants to come back and play? Like, do we even know that?
Everyone's been talking about it. I'm pretty sure he wanted to play this year, but he just, like the case was, as he's obviously took a year ban for his situation.
Yeah. Do you think he deserves a spot?
I mean, I think he's a lot better than some of the people that are in the league now. Yeah.
I mean, historically speaking, I feel like John's one of those players he's always been there in the league. And
Mute your mic.
All right. Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Historically speaking, I think John's one of those players that deserves to be in the league. Just off his performances, he was a fantastic player in BO3. He won champs on it. He was really good at IW. Just came up a little bit short against the former Optics. So I could see him getting a spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't. Like I said, because he hasn't played in a year, and I feel like that holds some weight to it, whether it's a new game or not. So I could see it going both ways, but I think John does deserve some type of spot somewhere.
Okay. I don't know. I know John's history, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, he got banned from the league for whatever reason. I know there's been rumors going whatever, but I don't know. At least I don't feel like he deserves a starting spot. Just given, he didn't go through the amateur. I don't think he was allowed to go through the challengers, I guess, but
No, I think he
had
had
to put any
to.
effort in, though. You know what I mean?
I think he was banned for the whole year completely. I don't think he could do anything.
He couldn't play all year.
He couldn't be affiliated with CDL at all.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was a lot, I guess, for those 12 teams there. I have few questions for you guys to just kind of open-ended questions about the league and certain players, and if you guys have anything else to add, you can add. But my first question, I guess, was, do you guys see Karma coming back potentially, or do you think he's?
No, I think he's done. I think he said before that he's not going to come back again.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he said before that this was actually his actual retirement. I think he's done for sure.
Do you see him coming back as some sort of analyst or coach, or?
I could see him be a coach, but I don't see him being an analyst. I think that's too. I don't think that's very Karma-like. I could see him coaching, but it would be like a FaZe team or a Chicago.
Gotcha. Okay, Cody.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there maybe could be a chance he comes back given the right roster, but I don't think he comes back. I mean, I sent a tweet to Trauma the other day from Clayster, and Clayster was very heavily speaking on teaming with Damon because he says that's one of the players he's always wanted to team with and never got the chance to. So there's a possibility that if Clay can convince him to come back, give it one more year and see what they can do on boots, on a proper boots game under Treyarch, maybe. But if not, if he doesn't come back, obviously Karma can make a really good coach under one term, is that he's actually willing to put in the time and effort, because I know Karma's been known to be the guy that stays up in 48 hours at a time, and he literally sleeps until like 5, 6 p.m. at night, and by that time, teams are literally already done at that point in time. So
The problem I see with Karma coming back though is if this league's online, I don't think he plays. I think he just says fuck it, it's a waste of my time.
Now, just speaking out scenarios, let's say Clayster wants to team with Karma, right? Whoever the next or whoever they pick to be their two or whatever, um, and they give Karma a decent pay there. Now, what I sent you guys the other day, basically saying I think it was like Clayster is getting like 500 grand a year just to play. Which I'm not sure if that's what his buyout is or if that's how much the contract was.
Well, yeah, I think they're making $50K a month for 12 months.
So I don't know. I mean, if I'm Karma, I'm not playing the shit fest that Modern Warfare was. I mean, if he likes to, well, again, I guess I don't know when the roster is completely locked, but let's play. He plays a beta. It feels way better. He's feeling it. He's got a good God squad that wants to form with him. I feel like he'd come back.
I don't think
feel
he
like
comes back. I don't think he comes back for the payday because I don't think Karma needs it for one.
Right.
Karma is one of those players where he turns on his stream and no matter what he's doing, people are gonna watch. So what I think Karma ends up doing is he's a full-time streamer. I don't think Karma comes back at all. I don't think he coaches. I don't think he plays. I don't think he analyzes anything. I think his COD days are up. Like I think he might be around. Let's say we go back to LAN sometime in the future. Let's say maybe not this year, but maybe next year for the next. I think it's going to be an IW game. I don't know. Whatever the next Call of Duty is after Cold War, I could see him potentially being like on the analyst desk at events and stuff like that, or maybe taking a crack at casting. But as far as this playing goes, I think he's done permanently.
What do you guys see in Clay go? I know we
I think
kind of talked
FaZe.
about FaZe early on here in the podcast.
I think FaZe is the only logical option because they're going to drop their main AR and Maniac, and they need a new main AR. Glacier's a main AR player, so I think that's the only good fit for him.
Now, see, there's two ways that they could go with this.
That or if Florida...
That I guess he could go with this is, this is a tough one with Clay because Clay has, obviously, people in the community that for whatever reason don't like him based off his internal hype in the team. I know players that he used to team with in Infinite Warfare didn't like when he would get up and yell and scream and try to get the fire lit per se. So with that said, I mean, I guess I could really see him going to maybe Florida, maybe Minnesota, but I think the main logical answer is FaZe.
I think he only goes to Florida if they drop Skies, but I don't see anybody dropping Skies for Clayster. Well, meanwhile, like, Clayster could definitely help them because he is obviously a very smart player. He could help out the young guns in, like, Pharaoh and, why am I drawing a blank here? Who's their other young player they have? Awakening, yeah. I feel like he could definitely help improve those two in particular and, like, how they think about the game. So, like, I think he would help more mentally than actually playing. But I think Glacier showed everyone in the community at Champs that he can still fuck around and smoke everyone. So I could definitely see him going to both of those teams. Minnesota maybe, but I think he wants to go to a bigger name city. At least I would.
I even see Glacier like I think he'll get a starting spot for sure next year. I think after he is done competing, I see him coming back as a coach.
I could see him coaching, or I could see him casting also, because there were times back in the day where like AW and IW, he would hop on the desk and cast matches and shit, and he was pretty decent at it. So after playing, Clayster's got a lot to choose from. Like, he can do literally anything. Like, he can coach, he can analyze, he can cast, he can do whatever. He can even get a management position. He can be a fucking recruiter for org. Like, there's so many routes he can take this. He's in good hands no matter what happens. So,
anything to add off that quick, or should I move on to my last?
No, very good.
This last question, I feel like is just kind of not a joke question, but just more of a, what do you guys think? Because I feel like maybe the reaction will be kind of funny. Is Parasite? He placed second in the Challengers finals, and I didn't watch any of his streams, but he could literally sit down for hours and just explain the spawn system behind Modern Warfare,
right?
Which is just kind of mind-boggling because that game's just a fucking clusterfuck. Do you see him getting picked up as a coach somewhere or player? I mean, I don't think he plays. I don't know. I feel like his history's kind of sealed the deal on that one a little bit in terms of being a player.
I'll say this. I think Parasite's probably better than half the players in the league currently. Maybe not half. Maybe that's a little bit too much. But I'd say a little bit under half of the players in the league.
Oh, yeah,
he's smarter than about 85% of them. A lot of these players in the league right now, they run and they don't think because in a game like this, they think they don't have to. But, like, Haggie's always been one of those players where he super analyzes everything. He takes the time to learn the game to bare bones. Like, he'll understand the game better than anybody. But he's never had the people around him since his, like, Frico days to win. And I think, given the last 2 years of seeing him play and try to get his way back into the league, I think Modern Warfare was a great example of how far he's come and how much he's grown. So I don't think he gets a spot, but I would love to see him back in the league because I truthfully think he deserves it. But he's got a lot of shit he has to fix about himself. Like, you can't be messaging your teammates' girls mid-fucking scrim, bro. Like, that's not cool, bro. So he needs to fix some shit about himself as a person.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's come a long way, don't get me wrong, but, like, he's got a little ways to go before I think he gets back in the league. And, honestly, I don't think it'd be far-fetched to say he never gets back in just because he's burned some bridges, and I think those are kind of permanently fucked.
That's the problem right there, is not skill-wise, but just
he's lost
personally.
connections that actually help you succeed in this fucking world. So
someone like him, I feel like he could be a really good fit as a coach for a team that's like maybe say New York. I feel like he could make a big change in their gameplay, helping out their like strategy when it comes to 4v4, because it's going to take a lot more strategic plays and stuff coming into back to 4v4. Obviously, it's not just going to be play for a trade, hop a hard point or hop a flag until the next squad spawn comes up.
yeah, I think Parasite's best option, if he can't get into a team, I think he still does the whole challengers thing again. I don't know how long he has left in the tank of not being in the league. But if he does end up doing any coaching, I think he would be a fantastic coach for teams with young players like a Florida or like a FaZe or maybe like a Paris or a Rocker or something like that with the young players, because he's a very smart, like we mentioned earlier, he breaks these games down to the simplistics, and with players like Pharaoh, who's like a very fast player, he's more so newer to COD. A player like him, and Awakening especially, would flourish under leadership from him because he knows what he's talking about, and Pharaoh's played with him before, so he knows, like, Haggy knows what he's talking about. So I feel like stuff like that would definitely help him and help other teams. I hope he plays somewhere. Like, I would love to see him back in the league, but like I said, if he's a coach, I think he goes somewhere with the young pieces to work with, for sure.
I'll shout my boy Killa. I know he's going to get some sort of contract from the Huntsman. I hope he comes back for content, or he kind of comes back in the scene, because I feel like his presence needs to be back, and even to this day, I'll go and watch.
You see, I like Killa, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, like, what the fuck is Killa gonna do? Like, I don't know where he fits in anywhere.
No, I don't think he has anything to do with the league. More so just.
No, yeah, I'm talking about, because he obviously got offered a contract from Hex for, like, content and shit, but, like, I don't know where or what he would do. Also, Killa has kids, so him moving away from his kids to be in Texas is kind of a big ask.
Isn't that a thing, though? He doesn't have 100% custody with him. Like, he kind of shares them.
Yeah, I mean, he has, like...
So I guess that might cause a problem.
I don't know where his girlfriend lives, or, like, his baby mama. Yeah, no. Well, that can't be true, because he picks his kids up from the airport.
I'm pretty sure they live in the same state.
I don't know, last I heard, and it wasn't even that long ago, Killa was talking on Twitter about picking his kids up from the airport, so I think they live in different states. But I could be wrong. I think Killa's from Philly, so unless he moved. But anyway, moving on to the next question.
That's all I had personally. Question. I don't know if you guys had anything you wanted to talk about in addition to what we all discussed, or.
Yeah, I have one or two things that I have written down.
Sure.
The main thing was I don't know if you guys saw. I have a link for it. We can put it in the description of this video. A video hit the surface of Twitter yesterday of Dashy playing with Illy in World War II, and he basically said that he is on a team going in the next game. If you guys had to guess, what organization is that under, and what team is he going to be playing with?
I mean,
like player-wise.
If I had to guess, probably Optic, just because he's already on the fucking team, and there would be no transition period. There would be no new faces. He would already be there. So I feel like that's the easiest option, and I feel like Optics looking at him as their next Scump. So I feel like they're going to try to hold on to the Dashy train for as long as possible. And you never know. Like, let's say you have Slasher, TJ, Kenny, and Dashy for next year. Like, whether or not that team is better with Dashy or with Gunless or with whoever they want to pick up, I still think that team's disgusting. So I could see that being the roster for next year for Optic Gaming LA. But I don't really know where I see him going other than that. To be honest, there's too many. Like, you could say he can go like literally to all 12 teams. Like, you never know.
Especially behind the scenes, we're not sure. Like we were talking about different teams changing up a lot of things. They might know more than we do in terms of what they want their roster to be. So, I mean, I feel like
Yeah, like I mentioned with
there.
like I mentioned when I was talking about Parasite, you know, these players have connections to other players in the league,
Right.
and they hold on to their friendships and their connections. So like, you could be ass, you could be worse than this kid over here, but you're gonna get that roster spot because these guys on Seattle, let's say, they know you, they're friends with you, and they've teamed with you in the past, so they're just gonna choose you just purely off the fact that they've played with you before rather than take a chance on, you know, a new up-and-coming player. So I could definitely see Dashy going literally anywhere because he does have, like, he has this aura around his name of, like, I'm fucking nasty. Like, you put me on the team and I'm literally giving you a fucking World Star mixtape. So I could definitely see Dashy going to literally any team in the league, but I don't see him settling for anything other than a top team.
Oh, for sure. Like you're kind of talking about, Optic's gonna do whatever they can to kind of hold on to this guy. He's kind of like a franchise player, in my opinion.
Yeah, even though it's kind of weird that I say that, even though he did get benched, but I think he had a big hand in benching himself. Probably he fucking hated Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
I have was that it for you, Quicks? I have one thing I wanted to touch
I
on.
had one more thing.
Okay.
There was also another thing that was on Twitter. It's not even really a question. It's more so just like a statement, or I guess more so for people to watch, and I guess get their thoughts going. Haggy was playing BO4 on stream today, and he already has announced that 4 or more organizations already have set rosters, and it's only been 2 days after champs, which I think obviously could change and probably will change. But he said as of right now, there's 4 or more orgs that have their set teams going into Cold War, which is kind of interesting.
I saw that, and he also said that it could change depending on what the orgs want to do. So they could have a set roster of 4, but if the org doesn't want it, then they won't do it. Potentially, you know, there's no 100%, you know, guarantee that that's the case, but I did also hear that there's a bunch of teams that have set rosters, and I'm sure that the second they announced 4v4, people were already in each other's DMs trying to form a team. So, yeah, I didn't expect anything else, to be honest. It was just like last year, you know, as soon as they mentioned 5v5, you know, players literally already had teams made for 5v5, like not Huntsman, but last year Optic Gaming with Scump and Crim on it still. They had already had their 5-man roster set before they even announced 5v5, just for the off chance that it was a thing. So it definitely makes sense to me. And I have one thing to talk about, or actually one thing to ask you guys, and anybody watching this, just getting your thoughts on the new game, Call of Duty Cold War. What are your biggest hopes for the game, obviously besides the addition of 4v4, which you already know about? What is your biggest hope for the game, and what is your biggest fear for the game?
Competitively or in general?
I would say for both, but just however you want to answer it.
I can answer this if you're not ready.
You go ahead, and then I'll fine tune what I want to say.
Okay, so the first thing obviously is it's going to be the one thing that they really need to focus on, or we really need, I guess it should be more so a thing we can hope for, is developer support. If we have developer support going in, like I know Vonderhaar is a huge fan of competitive COD. I know that he hopefully will do anything in his power that he can to help make the game 10 times better and fix bugs and fix stuff that needs to be fixed that's completely broken when the game launches. And another thing being off rip, they really need to have some sort of either ranked playlist or some sort of competitive playlist for kids who don't want to just sit there and play pubs for the first 6 months of the game before we get a new playlist.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say league play for sure. I think they just need to copy paste BO2 league play, and I'd be very happy with that. Literally change nothing at all. Don't change the ranks. Don't change the icons. Don't change anything. Just copy and paste, please. So what would you say, Quicks, that your biggest fear for the new game is then?
Biggest fear is you end up getting something along the lines of like what it is this year with Modern Warfare. You have game-breaking bugs where you can open a door. I know that there's not going to be doors, but like for example, Modern Warfare, you can open a door, walk on the other side, and close it, and the door locks, and people can't get through it.
I find it hilarious that the IW said that was intended. Like, what the
Right.
fuck is wrong with you guys?
Right.
What are you smoking?
And you do that, you can't open the door. If you see for it, you run into it, you shoot it, you stun it, nothing's popping the door unless a person who manually shut it themselves breaks it. And another thing is like for another big word for the game to hit a flop is like if you have a update, or I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is here, but like basically like the company pushes out something where a nerf needs to be put out for something, or like a fix for like a glitch or something, and we literally just get like wording and it just tells you, yeah, please don't do this. Like what? Like if you want your game to be good, you need to fix the bugs. Like Modern Warfare, they literally are sending people letters saying, please don't hack.
Yeah, like
you
that glitch
literally
in
have a
Warzone.
ban right.
There's a glitch in Warzone where you can, before the game starts, when you're in like the waiting screen, like the 30 seconds, whatever it is, you can literally drop your loot in your hands, and when the game starts, you can drop there and pick your gun up instantly. And instead of patching the glitch, they literally just released something on Twitter saying, "Please don't do this glitch. We're not fixing it."
Right, exactly.
Like that's just fucking pitiful.
That's one of my biggest fears is having the
That's just
support of
laziness.
developers
Laziness
like that.
developers.
Like I really hope that they give us some kind of decent support system where they actually want to keep their game alive for the full year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Razor, do you want to go, or do you want me to say my little piece?
I think I'll go just real fast.
All right.
Because I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Quick said. I think what I'm looking for, I feel like Treyarch. Okay, I feel like Black Ops 2 kind of broke out the competitive scene. And I feel like Treyarch really gives a shit. I don't understand, especially with the franchising. And I totally would, if you would have told me the disaster competitively and the support this year was, especially with franchising starting, I kind of would have, thought that was bullshit, or I wouldn't believe you. I don't understand at that competitive level how Activision or the league allows Infinity Ward to pull the shit that they pulled, and it's gotten to the point where I feel like as a consumer, like I don't want to fucking touch the Modern. I assume it's gonna be Modern Warfare 2. I don't like. I would wait to buy that shit if I even would get it, depending on where I'm at in life. I mean that's just how kind of off put I am, especially even with pubs being shit. So the thing I'm looking forward to for Treyarch is I feel like there's gonna be definitely way better communication, and I feel like they're gonna have competitive kind of set up. The only downside I see, I'm not going to touch multiplayer on pros and cons. I'll wait for next week if we choose to do a podcast or whatever to talk about multiplayer. My only downside, though, would be like the flip side of having the communication. I feel like they'll probably make some decisions at the beginning where it's like, ooh, we're not really liking this. And I hope it's not going to turn into a thing where it's like, well, we kind of like this and this is our vision for the game, so we don't care what the community or the competitive scene says. We like it this way. You know what I mean? My fear is that hard headedness or the lack of league play or um, just the lack of help that the amateur scene can get and the competitive scene too. Well, like I said, I don't see Treyarch. I don't see Treyarch doing that. I think they'll step up, and I think, especially, they're gonna want to have a point to prove that they're the best studio that makes Call of Duty, and they're gonna, I think, just shit on Infinity Ward.
For sure. Um, I have a few things for a couple of things for my hopes, and I have a few things for my fears for the game. To start, like I kind of briefly mentioned league play. I'm really hoping they bring back some type of league play or ranked play system. I think that's something that should be in from launch. I think that's something that the game needs. You know, you look at COD, it's the only FPS competitive game without a competitive playlist. The only one. So I don't understand why we're still in the day and age where we have to beg for a comp playlist and literally just get fucking fisted and never get one. But I think those days are behind us. I think if we don't get a ranked playlist, this game's gonna be a joke, just to be blunt. Another hope that I have for the game is I really hope that Treyarch looks at not Modern Warfare. I guess they can look at Modern Warfare and see the lack of updates and get inspired. Because my hope for the game is they do updates like Fortnite, where they give you weekly updates to fix bugs, to patch certain things, or add certain things, give you patch notes in the game like they did on BO4. I think that's really nice, just to be transparent, let the community know exactly what you did with every update. Like I said, weekly updates. I don't even know what they would fix for an example, but like let's just say a new glitch got found out. You know, they patch it within a week. Like that's perfect. Like that's something that we should be doing throughout every COD game. I think that's something that should have been in there last year, but for some reason IW is just too lazy to fix simple shit. But they'll fix the misspelling of the word trophy system. So, you know, a couple of fears I have is just the lack of updates. You know, like I said, for Modern Warfare, no updates. And I'm hoping that they have BO2-like maps, so kind of like the same structures, those 3-lane maps, very good for competitive, but also play extremely well for public matches, because you look at games like or MW, and you can count on one hand how many maps aren't total dog shit, and it's so bad. Like, the maps in MW are terrible. Even the good maps aren't that good, and it's just kind of sad. And the last fear I have for next year is the lack of eyes on the challengers, because not to say that they don't get the attention or any attention, but if you compare the challenger streams to the main streams, they get like 10% of the views. Like, no one's paying attention to the Challengers League. There needs to be more incentive to watch, because, like, you know, if you're in the Challengers League, you get nothing but potentially maybe getting into the league. Like, you don't get any exposure, you're not getting followers, you're not gaining anything else other than, you know, just to say that you were in it. So more eyes on the amateur players would be nice, and I'm just hoping they give consistent updates, and I think then the game will be really good.
For sure, for sure. Does anybody have anything else to add before we kind of wrap this up here? Anything we're missing? Anything you guys want to follow
me on Twitter at TraumaOAL, and if you don't, you're a fucking buster.
All that shit will be in the description. All right, gentlemen. So, that was kind of longer than I thought it was going to be. We're hitting an hour 33 right now.
Jesus.
And I feel like we talked about a lot of good stuff. Depending on the situation, there may or may not be a podcast next week talking about the multiplayer review. I know me and Quicks talked about wanting to do one. Trauma, you're always invited if you want to be the podcast, not just maybe to give your input of what you want, or whatever. We'll figure that out.
I'm sure we'll get to it.
So I think this podcast went pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say so. For our first podcast, it went a lot better than expected. So.
Yeah, I think there's some things that can work on. I liked a few things we did, but overall really good. So follow us on our socials. It'll be down in the description below, and stay tuned for more podcasts and videos coming to the channel. Thank you.
Peace.
Yep. Peace.